I love wrestling so much. I love the great stories, the bombastic characters, the fast-paced nail-biting action, and the shot of adrenaline I get every time I watch a wrestling show. If you don't know what professional wrestling is, basically it's a sport where performers choreograph a match and make it super flashy with power moves, crazy maneuvers, and amazing athleticism. The goal of these matches is to make your opponent tap out or pin them for the 1, 2, 3. In addition to that, there are also storylines being told to build up the matches, along with characters just like any other movie or TV show. My favorite shows are from WWE, which is where I and a lot of others started to love wrestling. I got super into WWE during 2011, and how could you not? Despite a rocky start, 2011 was a great year for WWE. So many great moments and matches, as well as acting as a transition year to find WWE's newest stars. And they did, well, sort of, but this year has some of my all-time favorite pay-per-views, which is why I wanted to do a 4-part series where I look at all of the pay-per-views from 2011, reliving my childhood with matches close to my heart. For judging a wrestling show, I will be keeping the ranking system from my Power Rangers ranked video, F to S. F is the worst, D is bad, C is okay, B is good, A is really good, and S is the greatest. Fair warning, I am just a fan sharing my opinions about something I like. I don't know the wrestling business better than the people running it, and these are just my opinions. And in my opinion, the first few pay-per-views of 2011 are pretty hit or miss, as you'll find out. With that said, I'm Rocko from Reamlore, and let's dive in. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to like and subscribe. We post videos just like this one on our channel. Our first pay-per-view is, of course, the Royal Rumble. I have to mention something real quick that bugged me back in 2011 and right now. The commentary this year was bad. It's mainly because of Michael Cole. Now, Michael Cole, in my opinion, is a first ballot Hall of Famer and the greatest wrestling announcer of all time. But during this year, someone in the back decided we should make our lead commentator a bad guy. So all night, Michael Cole just runs down all the good guys and is super obnoxious. I really don't like bad guy announcers. Hearing these guys run down the good guys is so annoying, and I don't mean in the way I want to see them get beat up. I mean in the way I want to mute my TV or change the channel. The only time it works is when they are comedic bad guy commentators like Jerry the King Lawler or Bobby the Brain Heenan. When you play it straight like Michael Cole here, it just doesn't work. This is made worse by the fact he is the lead announcer, meaning we hear him a lot more than whoever he's sitting next to. Thank goodness though, this heel Michael Cole thing died a little into 2012 and we never went back to it. Many times during my watch-throughs of these 2011 pay-per-views, I had to mute my TV because the commentary was so annoying. The very first match we see is Edge versus Dolph Ziggler for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now the story for this is crazy because Edge had a storyline where he was in a relationship with SmackDown general manager Vickie Guerrero, the former wife of the late great Eddie Guerrero. After a while, Edge dumped her because he was a bad guy at the time and was using her to be champion. But honestly, she was pretty rotten too at the time. Years later, she is backing Dolph Ziggler to screw over Edge and help her boyfriend as she's banned Edge's finishing move, the spear. I mean, it's a fine match. These guys are trying and they're both excellent, but the big problem is nobody thought Edge was going to lose the world title. Edge was a WrestleMania main eventer, and I mean, it's Dolph Ziggler. WWE never gave that guy the ball when he worked there. What really made this match age poorly is Dolph goes after Edge's neck, which makes me cringe so much. He had to retire for 9 years because of his neck problems. With the stipulation, you also knew what was going to happen. Eventually, after the ref and Vickie were distracted, Edge hit the spear and pinned Dolph for the 1, 2, 3. Our next match is actually really good because it's Randy Orton taking on The Miz for the WWE Championship. If you didn't know, back in 2010 and 2011, they were giving Miz the mega push. I mean, he won everything back then. The tag titles, the US title, Money in the Bank, the WWE Championship, and he even main evented WrestleMania this year. His cash in to win the WWE Championship was so good. It was on said Randy Orton legend killer and one of the best ever, with an awesome reversal, turning the RKO into the skull-crushing finale. The reaction is all time, especially this one girl in the crowd dubbed Miz Girl, who has the best look on her face as Miz won. It looked like WWE was all ready to make The Miz their next big star, and everything was working, which baffles me. A few years after this, they gave up on the A-lister and he sort of became enhancement talent. He does not get his flowers. I think The Miz is one of the best ever. So here, The Miz gets this awesome video package saying he's the best ever, he's won this, he's won that, he's an A-lister, but no one gives him respect. Edge, John Cena, and the entire WWE universe don't believe he can beat Randy Orton, but he believes it because he's the Miz and he's awesome. We get a promo with Miz and his protege Alex Riley, and he just reminds me why he's the best as he took a shot at Tom Brady and speaks in a deep, tough guy voice. The match itself is also great because you don't think Miz is going to lose, but it is Randy Orton, so there's that little uncertainty. The only bad bit of this is Michael Cole being really annoying because he was a fan of the Miz and just defends every horrible thing he does. I mean, Miz could have run over a 4-year-old and Cole could have said, they had it coming, they were in the way. They have a great back and forth before eventually the new Nexus come out. After Randy takes them all out, he RKO's the Miz and is about to win when CM Punk, the leader of the new Nexus, slides in, hits him with the GTS, and Miz pins him to retain the WWE Championship. All of this was going to lead to Punk versus Orton in a match at WrestleMania, and it was also where the Nexus finally died, with the only good member being Husky Harris, aka the future Bray Wyatt, who is my all-time favorite wrestler. Rest in peace. Recap video of Cody Rhodes getting his face broken by Rey Mysterio before we get a fatal 4-way match between Natalya, LayCool, and Eve Torres for the Divas Championship. Yeah, this is bad. If you didn't know, before the 2015 Women's Revolution, WWE didn't really care about women's wrestling. They didn't bother finding female athletes or wrestlers and instead hired models and sent them to the ring because they were attractive. And in the PG era, they were just used as buffers between matches. WWE put no effort into the stories and told the women who did know how to wrestle they weren't allowed to put on too good of a performance because it might make the men look bad. I mean, what a crock. And all of that applies here. After a while, Eve Torres just wins the Divas title. All I can say is thank goodness we had a women's revolution because it is like night and day with the women's wrestlers of the modern day. Seriously, the women's division is one of the best divisions in WWE, especially on SmackDown and NXT. I also got a reminder of the anonymous Raw general manager. Basically, a computer would give emails which an announcer would read out, and it was not great. The reason for this is because the Nexus attacked Bret Hart, who was the GM, so this one stayed anonymous, and you could make a good story about this, but thought was not put into the story. They had no idea who the general manager was, and in the end, it was so bad WWE just cut it. And when we did figure out who it was incredibly underwhelming. Interview with Daniel Bryan, who is one of the best wrestlers ever, who was at this point the US champion just getting a start in WWE. This was during this weird storyline where Daniel was a ladies' man and everybody wanted him, and I guess it worked because one of the girls is Brie Bella, who would become his future wife. They then do the to the numbers bit, which they always do for the Royal Rumble. If you don't know what the match is, basically 30, or in this case 40, men enter the Royal Rumble with 2 starting out, and more entering every 90 seconds. You are eliminated if you're thrown over the top rope and both feet touch the floor. Whoever is left standing gets a championship match at WrestleMania, the biggest show of them all. We then get the, at the time, biggest Royal Rumble match in history at 40 men. And you're probably wondering, why did we add 10 more superstars this year? Well, at the start of the thing, CM Punk is attacked by Wade Barrett and the Core, which is just a discount Nexus, and a big fight breaks out with the Nexus and the Core. The idea was to have the Core versus Nexus at WrestleMania, but it never happened. That's also why there are 40 people. They needed to involve every member of both groups. The Royal Rumble actually starts with CM Punk taking on Daniel Bryan, and these two are the best. I won't mention everyone who enters the Rumble, but it really is a, oh hey, look at where they are now kind of situation. Also, the music is so much better in 2011. That's because Jim Johnston, absolute legend, is still making the music at the time, and trust me, in the modern day, he has been missed. A standout moment happens as John Morrison, one of my all-time favorites, does an amazing maneuver. As he is about to be eliminated, John jumps onto the barricade and jumps back into the ring. It's awesome. I know Kofi Kingston would make the crazy Royal Rumble spot his thing, but this one was great. The next big part of the Rumble story is the Nexus takeover, because pretty much every member of the Nexus shows up and clears house, eliminating everyone in the ring and destroying anyone who tried to enter. That happened for a while before, you guessed it, John Cena shows up and eliminates all of them without breaking a sweat. A big criticism of the 2010s is Super Cena himself. Back in this era, he was doing his Superman thing and he almost never lost. That came to a head in 2010, where in the main event of SummerSlam, it was Team Cena against the Nexus, where the Nexus needed to win and they lost. After that, the Nexus became jokes and the fans really started to reject Cena, because at that time when WWE really needed new stars, it seems like they wanted to rely too much on Cena. Me, personally, back then, I didn't hate him, but he wasn't my favorite. I thought he was a little too cookie cutter. I eventually grew to really like him though, and here I will admit seeing him beat the Nexus around is pretty cool. We also get CM Punk and John Cena squaring off in the middle of the ring, and this was a preview of what would be the feud of the year. After some bad comedy with Cena, the second part of the Rumble really starts when Kofi Kingston gets in there, and Kofi is one of the best ever. He does not get enough credit for how good he is. Following that, a bunch more people roll in, including Sheamus, Rey Mysterio, and Wade Barrett. One thing about the Royal Rumble that is so great is surprise returns, and because of the core Nexus thing, we really only get 2 surprise returns. One being the ever-awesome Booker T, and the other being a pretty big surprise in the form of Diesel, aka Kevin Nash. This was his return to WWE after being away for many years in TNA, and he is really good here. Following that, Alex Riley joins the match with The Miz joining commentary, and this falls apart. First off, it's more of Michael Cole praising Miz over and over and just ignoring the match to tell us how great The Miz is, plus saying really bad things that make you want to mute the TV. And second, they kind of screwed this up, because Alex Riley later down the match is supposed to be eliminated by Cena, which gives The Miz the opportunity to eliminate John from the Royal Rumble. That would set up the WrestleMania main event, but Alex Riley slips up and gets eliminated early, so he has to hide out and pretend he wasn't eliminated. Now, I want to say, they're human beings, they can make mistakes, but this was a little silly, I'll be honest. We then finish out the numbers with Kane, one of the best ever, Randy Orton, and Alberto Del Rio. I'll be honest with you, Alberto Del Rio was not that great. His character was really generic and his in-ring work was good, but for some reason WWE pushed him to the moon this year. Like, he wasn't bad, he was perfectly fine, and WWE needed new stars, but Alberto was not at the main event level yet. Plus, you had other people that were way more interesting. The Miz, CM Punk, Christian, John Morrison, Zack Ryder, Dolph Ziggler, all of whom got much bigger reactions than Del Rio. The worst part of all of this, and why this Rumble is kind of a flop, is because of the winner, which yes, is Alberto Del Rio, and it really was the wrong choice. He was not ready for a world title feud and the fans weren't really behind him yet. All in all, this pay-per-view was not bad. It does have some things to enjoy like Orton versus Miz, and most of the Rumble was good, so overall, I'm giving this a C, even though there are much more interesting Royal Rumbles you can watch. I highly recommend the ones from 1992 and 2020. Alright, now we're getting to the good stuff. Elimination Chamber. Here's a spoiler for you. Elimination Chamber is one of my favorite pay-per-views in WWE. It all centers around the Elimination Chamber match. 6 superstars enter this horrible structure made of steel chain, plexiglass, and metal grates. 2 superstars would start in the match, and every 2.5 minutes another superstar would enter. You are eliminated via pinfall or submission, and whoever's left standing is the winner. What really makes this pay-per-view great is because it has always been the last stop before WrestleMania. As in, if you didn't win the Royal Rumble, winning this brutal match is your last chance to compete for a world title at the Showcase of the Immortals. That just adds so much drama to this pay-per-view because you can feel the desperation from everyone trying to secure a spot at WrestleMania. With that said, the first match is a little lackluster, Alberto Del Rio versus Kofi Kingston. This just kind of exists to give Del Rio a win before WrestleMania against Kofi, who was the Intercontinental Champion, and he was basically cannon fodder here, which is not good. WWE didn't believe in Kofi back in the day, despite how awesome he was, and for some reason on this night, the announcers are just laying into Kofi like he's the dumbest idiot to ever exist. So if you were hoping the commentary was a little bit better, I'm sorry to disappoint. Kofi is still amazing though, and despite the two having a decent match, eventually Del Rio just taps out Kofi. I mean, the crowd is good because they cheer, 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 but you gotta be realistic, you can skip this one. Interview with Edge next, and he says he's happy Vicky and Dolph were fired, and he's going to win the Elimination Chamber. This is when Drew McIntyre rolls in and yells at him for Vicky firing Kelly, who he had a crush on, and that he is going to win the world title. We then get the first Elimination Chamber match, and I felt like a kid all over again. Mostly because I love the old Elimination Chamber. It looks way scarier than the modern one, which was incredibly scaled back to be more safe. We have Edge and Rey Mysterio starting out the match with Kane, Wade Barrett, Drew McIntyre, and a returning Big Show who is taking the place of the fired Dolph Ziggler. It doesn't matter though, because based on who I just mentioned, there was no way this was going to be bad, and it wasn't. It was incredible. Edge is a legend, and Rey Mysterio could actually be the best ever. You can go back to any of his pay-per-view matches he had in the last 40 years, and Rey always steals the show. Wade Barrett enters next, and countering my previous point, the outside grate looks super painful when they fall on it. That's probably why they changed it. Kane gets in there next, and he is arguably the best wrestling character ever following The Undertaker. I love this guy. I mean, maskless Kane isn't the best. I will always take the one which looks like a serial killer, but he is still really threatening. Drew McIntyre enters next and absolutely destroys everyone. I mean, he launches Rey into his pod, smashes Kane against the chains, and low blows Barrett before slamming him into a pod. I'll admit, Drew McIntyre wasn't the star he was going to be in 2011, but he really had something, and his theme song Broken Dreams was awesome. He needs to bring it back. Everyone gets knocked down before Big Show gets in and destroys the field. Some people say he was overrated, but I strongly disagree. There have been so many cookie-cutter big guys in WWE that can't move around or do moves, and Big Show has always been a super athlete. Paul White deserves his flowers. Big Show absolutely decimates Barrett because he and his crew took him out and he eliminates Wade. Big Show then follows as everybody hits him with their finishers before Ray jumps off the chamber pod and Kane eliminates Big Show as well as Drew McIntyre. Ray and Edge then team up to get rid of Kane, so it's back to how the match started. The mini match these two have is great. You really need to see this. They have tremendous chemistry in the ring. So much so, I actually thought Ray was going to win the world title at many points. Edge eventually wins as he speared Ray midair and pinned him for the 1, 2, 3. It really is emotional, even more so because this was really Edge's swan song as a wrestler. While he would have his last match at WrestleMania against Del Rio, it wasn't up to the standard you'd expect, so in my mind, this was his last match before his legendary return at the 2020 Royal Rumble. Del Rio also runs in to attack Edge, but this is just so we could get the return of Christian, Edge's best friend, who was coming back from a torn pec. He really beats the credit of Del Rio, and broken record I know, Christian's one of my favorites. We then get a super emotional interview with wrestling legend Jerry the King Lawler, where he says that last week his mom passed away, but he still needs to stay focused for his match with Miz for the WWE Championship. Because even though he is a legend with a great career, he's never held the WWE title, he's never competed at WrestleMania, which is just insane. He's one of the OGs. After an in-ring advertisement with Booker T and Trish Stratus that went on for way too long, we get our next match, Santino and Vladimir Kozlov versus the Core for the tag titles. Short answer, it's bad. Eventually the Core won, but WWE doesn't care about this match, anyone in it, or the tag titles, so there's not really much reason to watch. Interview with The Miz, and he is great as always, saying it's not the 80s when Lawler was relevant, it's 2011, the year of The Miz. And to be honest, he's kind of right, or at least the first half. The second half belongs to CM Punk. Another talking segment happens, and this is just ridiculous. We already had that super long advertisement, and now we have Vicky pleading for Dolph to get reinstated. Instead of that though, Teddy Long, the general manager, hires back Kelly Kelly, who beats up Vicky before Leiku come out to beat her up, and Trish Stratus, one of the best women's wrestlers ever, makes the save. It's the same thing with the tag match. You could have just put this on Raw and it would have been average, but on pay-per-view it feels like we're just filling time. All of this was building to a tag team match at WrestleMania, but that got turned into a 6-person mixed tag with Morrison and Ziggler. They also replaced Kelly Kelly with Jersey Shore star Snooki. We'll get to WrestleMania 27 in a bit. Next up is, believe it or not, The Miz versus Jerry the King Lawler for the WWE Championship. Shock of all shocks, this is actually very good. We get a video package reminding us of the history, highlighting Miz's ascension despite everyone telling him to quit, which was pretty accurate backstage at the time. Meanwhile, Jerry Lawler won a battle royal to qualify before getting this awesome video about his career. You should honestly see it if you can, and the best bit is Jerry saying it's his dream to compete at WrestleMania and win the WWE title, so he's not going to waste his last chance. The match itself is also really good. I mean, Jerry's obviously past his prime, but he's a professional, and The Miz knows how to work around Jerry's limitations. The crowd is so behind Jerry, and they just want to will him winning into existence. I mean, it's obvious Miz would retain, but you just wanted to believe Jerry could win, and that's all wrestling is at the core, making you believe. The only bad part of this is, again, Michael Cole on commentary, because he won't stop talking. He's constantly running down Jerry and praising The Miz, who is being the worst human being ever, and it just takes away from the match when he's not talking about the match. He's just saying, "Oh, Miz, you're so great, and Lawler, you suck." The whole point of this heel Michael Cole thing was to have a match between Cole and Jerry at WrestleMania, and spoilers, it is actually, I'm not even kidding, the worst match in WrestleMania history. Back to the match, Jerry had the thing won. He hit the big fist, and Miz couldn't kick out, but at the last second he gets his foot on the rope, meaning the ref had to break it up. After that, Miz hit the skull-crushing finale and retained his title. After that, Jerry gets a hero's farewell as he waves off the crowd, and it's a really nice moment. Ruined again by Michael Cole as he just runs the guy down saying like, "Oh, get that piece of trash out of here, you're a has-been, get lost." Like, it's that constantly. The Michael Cole bad guy thing just needed to stop. We then get a not great interview with John Cena where he just plugs Fruity Pebbles. I mean, you wonder why people hated him back then. He was essentially a corporate mascot at some points. CM Punk gets interviewed next saying that John Cena has never beaten him before and CM Punk will be the winner. We then do get the second Elimination Chamber match, and it was very good. It features John Morrison and Sheamus starting out with John Cena, Randy Orton, CM Punk, and R-Truth inside of the pods, all competing for a chance to face the WWE Champion at WrestleMania. WrestleMania. Both Sheamus and Morrison are incredible and some of my favorites, and when Sheamus came out, he came out to his old theme song, Written in My Face, which keeps getting taken away from him. Just let him keep it, the song is great. After a while, Randy Orton gets in there and does the draping DDT over the steel grate before something really stupid happens. Because Punk is the next guy in there, and he tries to get out, but the ref can't open the pod, so Randy RKO's Punk and pins him. Before he leaves though, the Raw general manager's laptop goes off, and he goes, because Punk's pod malfunctioned, it wasn't fair, so he's allowed to go back in the pod. Okay, that is crossing the line. The universal law in WWE is that the referee's decision is final, no matter how screwy it is. It is absolutely ridiculous, but they follow that rule to a T. So why did WWE bother to do this? What was the point of beating CM Punk for no reason? I don't get it. That was incredibly dumb, but continuing on, John Cena and R-Truth get in there, but R-Truth gets eliminated so quickly, I question why he was even in the match. CM Punk does get in there, but only after Randy hits Cena with an RKO on the steel grate and took advantage. Punk mocks Randy, man, I love this guy, before hitting the GTS, eliminating him. The fight continues with John Morrison climbing to the top of the pod before scaling the ceiling of the chamber and crashing down into Sheamus, eliminating him. Keep in mind, that thing is like 20 feet in the air. I mean it when I say it, John Morrison is one of the best ever. Even after this, he starts selling his injured knee, and I honestly thought he was hurt. He's so good. Meanwhile, it becomes a great triple threat match between the remaining wrestlers, and it's so much fun. Eventually, Punk eliminates John Morrison before John Cena gives CM Punk an AA over the steel grate, and that was that. The main event of WrestleMania 27 is set. John Cena versus The Miz for the WWE Championship. Now, what do I think of this pay-per-view? Overall, I have to say most of it was average because of all the fillers shoved in here. Advertisements, promos, pointless matches. On Elimination Chamber, you shouldn't put that many ads on there. Like, we bought the show, just let us enjoy it. Still, I am giving the show a B because the Elimination Chamber matches we did get were really good, and that's why we're really here. And the WWE Championship match with Miz and Jerry is a standout. More people should honestly talk about it. Now we get to the big time, WrestleMania 27. For over 40 years, this has been the show of shows, the biggest event in all of wrestling, the biggest crowd of the year, and the grandest stage of them all. This is where the most legendary moments are made, and the grounds for the best wrestling pay-per-views of all time. With all of that said though, WrestleMania 27 is actually a big letdown. The biggest problem is it's the only WrestleMania that barely feels like a WrestleMania. I'm not kidding, this was the very first WrestleMania I watched, and after it was done, I just thought it was another pay-per-view, and it wasn't one I was really into. Usually at WrestleMania, you get this aura that this is the most important show of the year, but almost all of the matches and segments are old hat. They just feel like they shouldn't be at WrestleMania, but they need to do it, so they're just going through the motions, and thus it feels very lackluster. First off, during the pre-show, after weeks of building up Daniel Bryan versus Sheamus for the US title, it ended in 3 minutes. They should have been given loads more time and put on the show, especially based on what did make the cut of the show. The first thing is The Rock cutting a promo welcoming the fans to WrestleMania. This is fine, but what is not fine is all of the backstage segments he has throughout the night. They are comedic segments that are pretty pointless other than to remind you The Rock is on the show. And it's not like they're 1-minute segments either. Some of them go on for like 6 minutes. The real start to WrestleMania happens with Alberto Del Rio versus Edge for the world title. It's pretty average. These two don't have the best chemistry, so the match is pretty standard, which is not okay for WrestleMania. This is hard to watch as well because this was Edge's final match, and for a very long time. Doctors telling Edge after the show if he injures his neck anymore, he will be paralyzed. And seeing Alberto go after his neck area made me sick to my stomach. The whole thing is not an enjoyable watch. Plus, you never thought Del Rio was going to win. After a while, Edge hits the spear 1, 2, 3 before he and Christian smash Del Rio's car with clubs. By the way, despite having a great talent like Christian on the show, WWE can't find a spot for him on WrestleMania. This is why this WrestleMania feels so off. They have top tier talent on their roster, but they're not being used. There's then Cody Rhodes taking on Rey Mysterio. Now to be honest, this is my favorite version of Cody Rhodes. I love the American Nightmare, but personally I enjoy his character here more. Because he was a Patrick Bateman character who thought he was grotesque after getting his face smashed accidentally by Rey. He would come out and put paper bags over fans' faces because he thought they were ugly. Seriously, that guy was gonna fly. As for the match, it's alright. I mean, it's Rey and Cody. It's hard to have a bad match, but eventually Cody just wins and that's it. I do appreciate Rey though, because Cody told a great story about how Rey went out of his way to help Cody get a match at WrestleMania, and it was stuff like this that sent Cody off to become the superstar he is now. Next up was the Core taking on Kane, Santino, Big Show, and Kofi Kingston, and it ends in no no joke, like a minute when Big Show punches one of them in the face and wins. So you have some of the best wrestlers in the world and you put them in a 1-minute match at WrestleMania? What is going on? We then thankfully get a WrestleMania caliber match when it's CM Punk versus Randy Orton. We've talked about CM Punk costing Randy the WWE title and eliminating him in the Elimination Chamber, all because Randy gave him a punk kick 2 years ago when Randy was a bad guy. So Randy, in retaliation, punt kicked all of the members of the Nexus, leaving Punk alone for this match. And this match is pretty good with a cool finish. CM Punk jumps off the top rope to attack Randy, but he hit an RKO in midair to win, and it looks amazing. You should also watch Randy and Punk react to this match on the WWE's YouTube channel because they really just recount stories the whole time, and it is very entertaining. Next up is, I kid you not, the worst match in WrestleMania history, because it is Jerry the King Lawler taking on heel Michael Cole. I'm serious when I say this. I wouldn't have my worst enemy watch this match. First off, this match goes 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Reminder, the 8-man tag team match went on for like 1 minute, and the Daniel Bryan Sheamus match for the US title went 3 minutes. And second, it is some of the worst wrestling I've ever seen, and I've been watching wrestling for 14 years. This is because Michael Cole doesn't know how to wrestle. Now, this isn't his fault. He isn't a trained wrestler, but when he starts doing offense on Jerry, the King sells it like he's being shot. Why? His strikes looks like a bee landing on you, Jerry. I want to make it clear again. I think Michael Cole is the best announcer of all time. No joke, the best. But as a wrestler and a heel, like, he was not good. The only good thing about this is Stone Cold Steve Austin is the special guest referee, and if he wasn't there, this would have been much worse. After some wrestling that made me question life, Jerry taps out Michael Cole thankfully, but this doesn't end yet, because the anonymous Raw general manager chimes in on the laptop and says Stone Cold interfered too much, so he's reversing the decision, and Michael Cole is the winner. This is why everybody hated the anonymous Raw general manager, and not the way we were supposed to. The Raw GM can apparently just do whatever he feels like because this is the second time he's abused his power just to make the fans angry. Heels are supposed to get you mad so you tune in next time to watch them get beat up. It's the classic villain getting his due from the hero. But they couldn't beat up a laptop, so it's just there to annoy you. It makes you want to tune out of the show. And when you think about it, Michael Cole, the same guy who, in the lead up to this, made fun of Jerry's mom's passing away, gets the victory on the feel-good WrestleMania show. I mean, if you put this old thing on Raw, it would have been bad. But on WrestleMania, it makes it historically bad. This whole thing should have just been 2 minutes of Michael Cole getting beat up and humiliated, but instead this match takes up a big chunk of WrestleMania. What were they thinking? And what was the end goal here? To push Michael Cole as a superstar competing for a world championship? Come on. You can only assume that WWE knew this was going to be a disaster because right after that, we get the best match on the show. It's Undertaker versus Triple H in a no disqualification match. This was amazing. The story here is that last year, The Undertaker put his legendary WrestleMania streak on the line against Shawn Michaels' career, and he won, retiring Triple H's best friend. So this year, Triple H wanted to take his shot at ending The Undertaker's streak, so they just have an amazing match. The build to this too is actually incredible. You will not believe this. Both Undertaker and Triple H were out with injuries at the time, but in the lead up to WrestleMania, they had the most epic stare down ever. First, Undertaker returns on Raw after this countdown video with all the fans going crazy like, oh my gosh, it's The Undertaker. He gets in the ring, doesn't get a chance to say anything before Triple H returns out of nowhere. The crowd goes nuts for him as well, and when they stare at each other, they both then look at the WrestleMania sign, and everybody realized they were going to have a match at WrestleMania. Oh my god. They built up that much excitement and hype by just looking at each other. That is when you know you've got something special. Now, WWE really wanted to present this as their first WrestleMania match, but that wasn't true. They had a match at WrestleMania 17. The reason they want to cover that up is because, I kid you not, when they were drawing up the card for that WrestleMania, they actually forgot Triple H and The Undertaker. That is a huge oversight. Despite the streak, there were multiple times in this where I thought Triple H had it. I mean, he hit a tombstone at one point, and it is one of the best near falls in history, before The Undertaker locks him up in a submission move. They also hit each other in the head with steel chairs, which is the one part of this I don't like. Concussions are a serious issue, and chair shots to the head were banned for a reason, so please don't do that anymore. This has a great finish too, because Triple H tries to grab his signature sledgehammer, but at the last second he passed out and The Undertaker had won. He did not win the war, however, because even though Triple H got up after a while and walked off, The Undertaker had to get stretchered out, which has never happened before. All of that was setting up their rematch at WrestleMania 28, and in my opinion, that is the greatest wrestling match to ever be produced. This match was so good. Only in WWE can you go from the worst thing ever to the best thing ever. But then we go back to the worst thing ever with our next match. It is Lay Cool and Dolph Ziggler taking on John Morrison, Trish Stratus, and the star of the TV show Jersey Shore, Snooki. I understand why Snooki was on the show, because Jersey Shore was big back in 2011. But this is another nothing match at WrestleMania, because it was so clear she didn't know what she was doing. Plus, everyone in this deserved way more at WrestleMania than a 5-minute showcase match for Snooki, which ends after she hits, no joke, the worst frog splash in wrestling history. She also gets booed out of the place, which made me feel bad for this girl. And again, putting John Morrison and Trish Stratus in a nothing match at WrestleMania? You couldn't find something better for them to do? The tagline of this show. We then get to our main event next, and this just hurt me. It's supposed to be about The Miz versus John Cena for the WWE title, except it's not. This is all about John Cena versus The Rock, which was scheduled for next year's WrestleMania. The Miz, despite having a great year becoming the champion and biggest heel in WWE, gets shoved to the side. After an amazing Miz video package that you should find online, the match starts, and it already falls apart. 1, Cena gets massively booed even more than The Miz, who is a total jerk, and 2, the crowd knows nothing major is going to happen until our final boss comes out, so everybody is just silent, despite this being the main event of WrestleMania. Their match is not that good, mostly because of the ending. After they spill it to the outside and collapse on the floor, Miz actually getting concussed, the referee counts them out. Yes, a double countout ends your big WrestleMania main event. What? The Rock comes out to try and save it, but it's too late. You already ruined this. He smashes the Raw general manager laptop, and why no one else did that I don't know, and he restarts the match, but makes it no DQ. So he pretty much instantly hits John Cena with a rock bottom, and Miz takes advantage and retains. This whole thing was a mess, and to make things worse, there were reports that things were changing so much backstage that officials were actually getting annoyed, and it's pretty clear from this whole show. They have been building Miz up as the next big bad guy, and they just flush him down the toilet in favor of, you guessed it, relying on the old guard. Plus, this program between Rock and Cena fell apart because nobody back in 2011 wanted to cheer for John because of all the Superman and Fruity Pebbles stuff. I mean, the match did sell a lot of tickets because you know The Rock, but that doesn't mean it was worth burying The Miz. This whole pay-per-view is bad. It's getting a D. It's really not worth your time. The only reason to check it out is Triple H versus The Undertaker, but really, it's not worth sitting out the rest of this. Just find the match online or on streaming. By the way, that match is the only reason this isn't getting an app. While I don't think this is the worst pay-per-view ever or even the worst WrestleMania ever, I do think it holds the title for the worst WrestleMania in the modern day, and that is quite an achievement. Thus ends part 1 of this series. Yeah, the first few papers of the year weren't that spectacular, but they would find their feet soon enough, mainly revolving around one CM Punk, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Although next time we are going over the most insane pay-per-views of 2011, and I'm really excited to talk about that. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all later.